I started realizing an attraction to women actually when I was about 10. You know, way before puberty, but I just, you know, I mean, I guess over time I kind of got more and more in tune with it, and I started accepting it, because at first I was kind of like, well, that's not okay, but you know, and then I started kind of realizing, well, what's wrong with this? There's nothing wrong with this. I mean, you just are who you are, you know, whether it be psychological, biological. I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons that go into it, but at the end of the day, you're still you. For a while, I identified as bisexual, but now I identify as pansexual, because I don't believe that, for me, personality really factors into me liking a person. You know, it's more about personality. You know, so regardless of if they're trans or cisgendered or whatever, you know, whatever their gender identity is, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm pretty open or whatever. So in that sense, because you know, bisexual kind of implies a gender binary, men and women. You know, and there are some people who don't fit into that. You know, there's some people who identify as androgynous or genderqueer, I guess is the better you know, umbrella term for that. So for me personally, you know, I try to be all inclusive, you know what I mean? I really don't care how they dress or who they are, you know, as long as they're a good person, I guess, you know.
Have you ever dated or been with somebody who's transgender?
Yes and no. Well, yeah, I have, you know, but in lieu of airing dirty laundry, you know, yeah, you know, and I mean, you know, I am in love with a trans person, but, you know, but that's neither here nor there, you know, I mean, yeah, I have. Everyone has different things that are okay and not okay, especially if you're being physical and intimate with them, you know, but trans people have that kind of extra degree, and a lot of people don't really respect that, like, they don't respect their identity enough to begin with, you know, and I think that's the worst part of it, but there's also, you know, there's certain things you just do and don't do, and it's like, you know, the physical ability aside, or physical, I guess, you know, connection aside, it's, you know, you have to be willing to respect them as a person, not as, you know, their identity is a part of who they are, and it does define them in a lot of ways, but at the end of the day, they're still just a human being, you know, just like anybody else. So it's like, you know, I don't understand why people go all, you know, that's disgusting or weird or that's dumb or you're confused, or no, it's just like they are who the hell they are, and you can take it or leave it. So especially in terms of LGBT issues, you know, I think you know, it's like everyone focuses on the L and the G, you know, no one really focuses on the bi or especially the trans. A lot of people, like a lot of trans people get left out, or they confuse being trans with a sexual identity, and it's like, no, you know, because I mean, there's plenty of trans people who are still interested in people who are of the opposite biological sex than them, you know, and it all depends on what labels you prefer, and to respect that. I mean, it's really that simple. If someone says use these pronouns, then use them. It's not, you know, I mean, how hard is that, you know? But yet people go out of their way to completely deny the existence of trans people altogether, or just completely say, well, you know, F you, you don't matter because you're a weirdo. It's like, these are people, they deserve rights, they deserve equal treatment. It's that simple. They're human beings, they deserve civil rights. I mean, you know, it's like, I mean, how many straight people would like it if, you know, a gay person came up to them and said, oh, I'm sorry, your marriage is invalid now because it disagrees with my beliefs. I think we'd have a completely different change in attitude. There's people I've talked to in the LGBT community, you know, whether they're trans, gay, bi, whatever, that have told me that, you know, sometimes I wish that I could be more normal because my life would be easier and I wouldn't be ostracized and maimed and treated horribly because of it, you know. I mean, they don't sit there and say, you know, I don't want my identity. You know, they take a lot of pride in their identity and who they are. But on the flip side, you know, it's kind of like, you know, my life would be easier if I were more normal. You know, but I mean, I've seen friends, you know, get treated as less than because they were like, oh, you know, I'm lesbian, or, you know, or I've heard all sorts of stories about how they were, you know, discriminated against at work. One of my very good friends, he's trans, you know, they started asking him personal questions about his body and all sorts of other things in the work environment, and, you know, and he suffered a lot of stuff because of it. You know, he tried to work at one store, and you know, he didn't want his birth name on his name tag, and he had to use his birth name, and he lost his job because he didn't comply with the dress code, even though it said that that particular company is accepting of all genders, and it clearly says in their policy they don't discriminate. Your family's kicking you out. You can't even get a job. You can, just because of your gender identity, because you happen to wear clothes that the majority of this particular sex wears. Like, what? It's so idiotic. Even though we have scientific and, you know, psychological and all sorts of reasons that we can prove why people are the way they are. You know, like, you know, sometimes it is psychological, you know, sometimes it's upbringing, but a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, I mean, it's like, there's hormonal imbalances, there's also, you know, I mean, there's some people who are even born with a 3rd chromosome, I mean, come on, you know, and that doesn't usually manifest itself in, you know, sexuality, gender identity, but, I mean, look at hermaphrodites, that's a natural, something that happens in nature, I mean, that's there. So it shows that even sex is not even clearly defined as male and female. My grandparents do know that I identify as pansexual, you know, but I don't talk about it because, you know, they just get these looks on their faces like they're poker facing, and they just get really silent, pretend like I didn't say anything, you know, and go about their business. And it's like, well, yeah, you know, I mean, this is who I am. I'm still the same granddaughter. I'm still the same person. You know, I'm Molly. That's it doesn't change me.